Ochako stood on the UA roof, observing the fields and streets surrounding the school building. She pushed back the long brown locks of hair as they blew in the wind, trying to keep a clear view of the streets. Someone was keeping an eye on the school, and it was about time they found out who. Now wearing her familiar black and pink hero costume, accented with the brown coat she had taken from the log cabin and Izuku's face guard around her neck, she stood. She looked down at her boots and arms. Her arms were now wrapped in a red-like support material, while her boots now had what seemed to be vents on the ends. I hope these upgrades work, Ochako thought to herself as she looked on, remembering what Hatsume had told her only a few minutes prior. Tilde. These are a few arm supports Midoriya asked me to make him. Apparently the designs were originally created by a Melissa Shield, I believe. Hatsume said, they're made to help his arms when he uses his quirk. Braces for all that spare kinetic energy. They won't help you brace kinetic energy, but they will allow you to punch harder and cushion your lands in case anything happens. Take a large fall from deactivating your quirk, try landing on your arms. If they can absorb kinetic energy, they should absorb the impact as well. And the boots? Ochako asked as she strapped the red support guards on. Hatsume shrugged. They're only a first attempt. You're going to see how they work when you're out in the field. Tilde. Ochako made a fist as she stomped her foot on the ground. She would have to give Izuku the bracers when she found him. Now all they had to do was locate the villain. Easier said than done. This villain potentially could have been watching them ever since the first UA villain attack when Shigaraki Fist made his appearance. How would two trainee students find them if one of the most advanced protected hero school in the country couldn't find them? Suddenly, Ochako heard the roof door open up from behind her. Finally, Bakugo was here. Took you long enough, she said, not turning towards him, choosing to continue looking out towards the streets. What were you doing? Reading a page of manga. Oi, you look here, you're not the only one with bright ideas, roundface. Bakugo yelled angrily. Ochako's eyebrow went up as she continued to scan. And what idea did you come up with? Ochako asked. With a surprise, a small fairy burst into existence only a few inches away from Ochako's nose. Ochako, not ready for the illusion, took a few steps back from the edge of the roof. Hi Ochako, the fairy said happily. Ochako turned on her heel to look at Bakugo, in his hero outfit, with the silvery blonde-haired girl next to him. She waved with a smile, a bit nervously. Ochako's gaze turned to Bakugo, her eyes asking him all the questions he needed. We need to find one person out of a crowd of hundreds, right? Bakugo asked, angry Ochako hadn't already picked up on what the plan was. This brat can get into people's minds, right? So let's let her use her overseer, quirk or whatever. Should make this easy. If they're tracking us at all times, then they should be around even now. We can find and kill the fucker. Well, no, we need them alive to give us information, Ochako said, still, Bakugo bringing Hima along. That was growth. However, Bakugo, sometimes I feel like Izuku rubbed off on you more than me. You can be smart at times. Hey, I got number 3 on the midterm, remember? Deku got 4. And what number were you again? I was number 6. Big deal, Ochako said, walking forward and patting Hima on the head. Think you can help us out, Hima? Ochako said, squatting down a little bit as Bakugo grumbled off. Hima, however, looked worried. I dunno, I've never had to use my quirk on so many people before. She said quietly, and, my quirk has always been trouble. That's what I was taught. Hey, remember what Izuku told you before? Ochako asked, continuing to pat the girl's head. That quirk of yours is a gift. It's special. It can help save a lot of lives. And right now, it can help save Izuku. I won't force you, but I know you want to save him almost as much as I do. Hima's eyes light up as her face grew confident. I do. I want to help save Izuku-kun, she said, puffing her cheeks. Ochako smiled. Then let's do this. Hima walked towards the edge of the school building, choosing to stand next to Bakugo, who had his arms crossed, and closed her eyes. It might take me a while. So please, as I search, rest easy. Hima said, her eyes still closed. Ochako nodded. Anytime Hima entered her computer-like science-y state, her quirk was active. All they could do now was wait. She's taking forever. Bakugo, don't you say anything to her. She's doing her best. We're wasting time. And what else can we do? Bully every person we find on the street. Besides, this was your idea. The two trainee heroes had sat against the door of the roof entrance, watching as the girl had been standing on the edge of the building for about 2 hours now. Bakugo growled as he stood from his sitting position, choosing to pace instead. Ochako sighed, leaning the back of her head against the door. Could it be that whoever it is watching the school isn't in proximity? If they were able to watch from a distance. However, right as the thought appeared in Ochako's mind, Hima's eyes shot open. Target located, she shouted, as she pointed towards an area down near the streets. Both Bakugo and Ochako saw what seemed to be a pillar of light in the near distance. Ochako smiled. Hima was showing them the way with her illusions. Immediately, Ochako felt the shockwave from a couple of explosions. She watched as Bakugo flew into the air. She grit her teeth as she leapt, her zero-gravity activated, following Bakugo. Bakugo and herself shot down towards the beacon Hima was creating for them. Ochako glanced at Bakugo, as he flew at incredible speeds down towards the ground. He would hit the target first. Ochako smiled. Now was a better time to test her boot upgrades. Better now than later. She brought her knees to her chest as the newly created vents in her wide boots started to hum. She kicked the air with as much force as her legs could. Immediately a shockwave of air shot from her boots, pushing the already zero-gravity girl faster. Hatsume, I'll give you credit for these. This is awesome. Ochako thought to herself as she whizzed through the air. The shockwave was nowhere near the power of Izuku's, but now she could move much faster independently, and with her grappling hooks combined, she now had mobility at least close to or on par with Bakugo's. Hima, I know you can still hear me. Ochako called out as she continued to catch up to Bakugo with her newfound wind speed. The fairy pooped into Ochako's field of vision. Tell all the citizens in the area that there's a villain and they need to evacuate. It's okay to go into their minds for this, just let them know to get to safety. The fairy saluted before disappearing yet again. Ochako watched as people started filing out of the area. In a matter of seconds, the person the beacon had guided them towards had come into view. Die! Bakugo yelled as he landed next to the figure. Two powerful explosions went off point blank as the figure was sent flying. Ochako kicked the air again, blasting her towards the now airborne villain. The figure twirled in the air before reaching their hands up to try and block, however Ochako's eyes grew white. With the red bracers made for Izuku, Ochako brought her fist down into the figure's stomach. With another kick and shockwave of air, Ochako released her zero-gravity, using all of her weight and the force of the air pressure from her boots to slam the figure into the concrete, cracking the cement just a bit. You and the nerd both have a fucking habit of stealing my kills. Bakugo snarled, walking towards Ochako, who was holding the figure down to the ground. And what's up with those upgrades? You can thank Izuku and yourself for the inspirations, Ochako said, hiding a smile from the angry blonde. The fairy once again appeared in front of the two. This is the guy who has been watching the school for months. I read his mind, he's got a pretty weak will, she said, choosing to sit on Ochako's shoulder. All right you, where's your boss? Ochako asked. She felt the man try and break free from her grip, however Ochako strengthened her grip. What's up with you? The man called out struggling. How are you so strong with your small ass? I helped my boyfriend squat weights once, Ochako said simply as she pushed the man's arms into his back even further. The man cried out in pain. Ochako glanced over at Hima, who nodded. I haven't done a single thing. The man called out. Aren't you heroes? You can't just tackle people in the middle of the street without any warrant or anything like that. Don't you know the rules? Look guy, we're going to be wanted by the government soon anyway, Ochako said. Plus we know you're lying. The fairy told us you were and she can read minds so. The man looked over his shoulder with complete fear and confusion. Fairies, mind reading, you're out of your mind. The man shouted. Ochako sighed. Look you're causing a lot of problems. And you clearly don't want to listen to me, but here I'll give you one more shot. Ochako said as she roughly raised up the man by the arms. You can listen to me, with my adorable cute face. She smiled, before roughly turning the man towards the angry blonde. Or you can talk to him. The man looked from her towards the explosive teen a few feet away. A sweat drop ran down the man's face as he stared at the red-eyed teen, the aura dangerous. Were the red in his eyes glowing? Were there flames behind him? Okay, I'll talk. The man said, struggling not to free himself but to put as much distance between himself and Bakugo as humanly possible. Ochako smiled sweetly. Great, you'll be coming with us. Kenny boy here, a sketch of the current, I am here for you, version of Ochako. I did have to use a Horikoshi sketch as base in order to draw this in about an hour, but all the add-ons are my own work. I don't really like using a reference like that, but it makes things a lot faster, and honestly it teaches you a lot about anatomy. Plus it gives a better depiction of the character, so I hope you guys aren't mad at me for referencing this time. I can take the time to draw it later in my own style if you guys want later on, and if you guys do like the references with add-ons I'll do more of them, like Izuku. So the vents in Ochako boots collect air as she travels through the wind with her zero gravity, and when she kicks it releases the air, pushing her forward. She got the idea inspired by Izuku's quirk. So that's what she used in this chapter. What do you guys think? Look out for the next chapter soon.